let's talk about Stone Age animals. So, what animals were around back then? Now, we talked about how the Stone Age was a really, really, really big amount of time. So, the weather changed, but we'll start in the cold. The ice melted then. So the animals changed because they didn't need stuff that they had for the cold. I'm trying not to give too much away. So, we have one that everybody knows. How should I lay this out? Let's go for a little chart, I think. So we've got this guy, the woolly. I think it's double M. It is double M. But that didn't look right. A woolly mammoth. He was essentially an elephant, but in the cold. And because he was an elephant in the cold, he had a big furry coat. And he also had absolutely massive tusks. Now, elephants now still have pretty big tusks, but mammoth tusks were outrageous. Why? What do you think that was? Well, mammoths were human dinner quite a lot of the time. Okay, these guys, loads of don't know if you have a cat, Verity. We have a cat. He thinks he's a saber-toothed tiger, I'm sure of it. Crawls really low. Okay, these guys were not dinner. These guys were danger. Okay, so all those tools we talked about last week, all of the weapons, the bow and arrows, the spears and stuff, they would have all come in handy defending ourselves from saber-toothed cats. But also, we would have hidden as well. So in those caves or those shacks, so those structures that we talked about, even the ones that were like wooden with animal skins on the outside, we would have used weapons to protect ourselves, but also we would have had to bear in mind that saber-toothed cat were roaming. So you wanted your house to be able to keep you safe and your family safe. So they were pretty well built. I'm going to go back to green now, I'm going to alternate. Okay. There were also giant elk. Now, I'm going to show you. I wonder if I can show you. I was thinking about getting a second computer screen so that I could show you slides on here and just turn it around, which I still might do if on the slide. That's not very technical. You need to do screen sharing and other things that I don't understand. But I don't understand those. I'm a bit of a technophobe, but I'm not really. I just need to have time to learn how to do these things. But I thought in the meantime, if there was something that I really wanted to show you a picture of, like a giant elk, I can show you on my phone. So obviously we didn't have photographs of them because we didn't have cameras. Cameras weren't invented. But people did used to draw, which I'm going to talk about a bit next week. But they weren't super detailed. There wasn't paper that's been preserved. It was like on stone and rock. So, you know, it's an idea of what we think. They're all like artists' impressions, but this is a good one. I'm wondering if that makes more sense. I'm going to get in trouble for showing an image that is copyright, but I'm going to assume that because this is on a shareable page, I'm not going to get in trouble. So here we go. If YouTube tells me off later, then so be it. This is a giant elk. Its antlers would have been bigger than a car, like wider than a car. How crazy is that? Well, I'm chuffed with how clear that image is. I thought it was going to really, really flicker, but it's not. Okay, I'm going to get a second screen and do slides for these lessons. Okay, they were wider than a car. Okay, so they had these enormous antlers and they were very graceful. You know, like a deer prance around. They were dinner. So the antlers again, similar to the tusks. they were protecting themselves from hunters. And that wasn't necessarily just humans. That the saber-toothed tiger would have probably eaten the giant elk. They probably would have hunted in packs, like we see lions in documentaries and stuff. Or if you've been to Africa, if you're lucky enough to see actual lions hunting, which I imagine is quite rare, you'll see that they work together in a team. So the saber-toothed tiger, or the saber-toothed cats, sorry, would have been eating the giant elk as well, and the woolly mammoth. Hence they have protection, or can I do a task? Protection. Okay, what else do we have? Let's do 3 more. Maybe 4. Okay, I'm on red. Cave Bear. That is a really cute book. I want to say it's Julia Donaldson now I think about it. Called Cave Baby. I really like it. There's a cave bear in that. And Cave Baby is scared of him. Then I think it turns out to be a dream in the end. Cave Bear. Dinner or danger? What do we reckon? I don't know, Verity, how do you feel about typing? Do you just sit and watch with Mum, or do you type? Because if you type, you could tell me. She's assembling her weapon / tool. She's ready! You could play Dinner or Danger with me, but I don't know if you're able to see comments properly. I also think my computer's a bit slow at loading. I'm going to hang tight and see if we think a cave bear is dinner or danger. I'm not sure if she's going to answer. I'll go ahead. I'll tell you the answer, and then maybe for the next one you might tell me dinner or danger, dinner or danger, cave bear, danger. Now, I'm not saying that nobody ever managed to catch a saber-toothed cat or a cave bear, but it was pretty dangerous and super unlikely. So they're danger. Weirdly, danger has been written in red, and dinner has been written in green, but that is just a coincidence. Okay, cave bear, let's do the next one. We've got these guys. Can you read that over that smush? You can. Wolf. Dinner or danger, dinner or... I feel like I've created some strange Stone Age game show. Dinner or danger, dinner or danger. Now, these guys, potentially danger. However, they wouldn't have been dinner unless people were desperate. Because what happened was, we domesticated them. What does that mean? Domesticated? What? Domesticated. It means you take an animal and you befriend it. And then you have babies with that animal. And they grow up around humans. And then you can have babies with that animal. That animal has babies. That sounded strange. And then so you find a wolf that you tame. Maybe you feed it every day and you become friends. Then you keep that wolf in maybe a fenced area. Or in your house or your cave, probably unlikely. And then that wolf maybe has puppies with another wolf you've befriended. And then those puppies grow up around you. So they're super friendly by that point, or as friendly as a wolf can be. And that happens again with you have puppies from the wolf. Puppies? Puppies. And then eventually you have super tame dogs. So dogs that we have now, they came from wolves that we domesticated. So I've written danger in that we probably weren't trying to catch them to eat them, and they would have hunted in packs, and they would have hunted maybe a small child if it was left alone in the woods or something like that. They may have even come to settlements and preyed on anyone that looks a little vulnerable. Hey! Yes, Verity, danger. Well done. But eventually we domesticated them and made them pets, which is funny. Okay, the last one I'm going to do, I had fish on this list, but I don't think anyone thinks that fish is danger. Fish, dinner. Okay, the last one is I'm going to write it down and then you can, I'm going to write it up here because I've got more room up here. Auroch. Okay. Auroch they're the ancestors of cows. Okay. Wonder if I can find you an auroch picture. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. Let's have a look for an auroch picture. Don't know why I sing everything at the moment. Typing. This is why I want to get a second screen so I can show you these pictures without typing. Just make little slides and that would be lovely. So we think that they would have probably looked like, they would have essentially looked like a bull, we think. I'm just trying to see if I can. Okay, this is the closest that I can find, but I mean it's pretty self-explanatory. They look like a big cow. Well, that way around. Okay. They were the ancestors of cows, and guess what we did with them? Were they dinner or danger? Dinner or danger? Dinner or danger? They were dinner. They were dinner, and then we domesticated them like we did the wolves. We put them in fenced areas. We kept them. We kept their babies. We got their milk and drank their milk, and we used them for meat. So we didn't have to hunt as much. Now, if you've got an area on your land that is surrounded by fences and it's full of these cow ancestors, these auroch, you're going to attract the attention of other animals that might like to eat them. So, yes, we weren't going out hunting as much once we discovered farming. However, we would have to still have our spears and our bow and arrows and our sticks and the other things that we talked about to protect our farms as well. So we were protecting ourselves. Farming kind of caused trouble in a way because before we were going out and hunting and we were just having what we needed. Then when we made farming, we were still having to defend ourselves from wild animals, but we were also defending ourselves from each other, trying to steal farmland and farm animals and produce. So yeah, that's sort of my overview of the animals that were involved. Were dinosaurs around? Were dinosaurs around in the Stone Age? Now, if you've seen the Flintstones or heard of the Flintstones, you might think, yeah, they hung out with dinosaurs all the time. They had a pet dog dinosaur called Dino. Dinosaurs were not the same time. They were not around in the Stone Age, okay? Dinosaurs, no. That is part of a cartoon and nothing else, okay? Now, my activity, we're doing a short and sweet lesson today because it's really hot. But, and also, there's only so much you can talk about with the animals. But, we're going to do an activity and I'd love to see Verity. I'd love to see your designs because you do beautiful drawings and that's great. So, these guys, they all had adaptations, okay? So, we talk about adaptations a lot in science. And it's to do with what you need to survive in a specific area. And it tells us lots about inheritance and genetics and DNA. It tells us a lot about natural selection and why animals live where they live and how they live where they live. So it's always, always, always good to ask why or how when you're thinking about everything, actually. But animals is very interesting. So we already talked about the woolly mammoth having big, shaggy coat. It was big and shaggy and quite heavy. Why did it have a big woolly coat? Well, it was to stay warm. If we wear a big woolly coat, we're lovely and warm. So then as the climate got warmer across time, the ice caps melted, they evolved to have less, they didn't need it. They didn't need the hair. Like we have evolved to have less hair. We don't have the same amount of hair as other primates. They evolved to have less hair. Okay, they lost their woolly coat, and now we've got elephants, which are, you know, relatives. Very much like a mammoth. Okay. So what I'm wondering is, if you can create me your own Stone Age animal, I want you to think about, in fact, I'm going to write these down so you can see. If it lived in the beginning, if it lived in the beginning of the Stone Age, you're going to have to think about the weather. It was really, really cold. Okay. If you're going to put them in the nearer part, the newest part, the Neolithic period, the Stone Age, maybe you don't need to consider the cold so much. It was quite a temperate climate, sort of middleish, warmish, you know, like it is now, kind of thing. Or a varying climate. But I want you to think about predators. What's a predator? Predator is who eats them? Whose food? Whose food are you? I don't know why I said it like that. Okay. So what are they going to need to protect them from their predators? So if you think, I'm going to invent an animal, and it starts off as a blob. Okay. Who eats the blob? How do they catch the blob? How does the blob stop them from eating them? How does the blob stop them from being caught? Does the blob have wings? Does it fly away? Does that stop it from getting caught? Does the blob have massive antlers to bash heads with people and say, leave it alone? Does the blob have a massive horn on its nose? Does it have huge claws or giant tusks or fangs, kind of like a saber-toothed tiger? Are they solo? So how do they live? Are they solo? Do they live on their own, much like maybe the giant elk? Well, they probably would have got together in gangs in a herd, but the woolly mammoth would have been solo a lot of the time, I reckon. The cave bear, probably solo a lot of the time. They obviously have to mate and procreate, means have offspring, have babies. But did they spend most of the time solo, or did they hang out in a gang? Were they in a group? And if they were in a group, how did they use that to their advantage? Have we talked about camouflage? Don't think we have. So, did they have camouflage? Did they need to hide? Camouflage. That's not right. I'm going to check the spelling of that. Because, you know, there's a U in it somewhere, and I know there is. Yes, there is. It's there. Camouflage. It's always good to check your spelling, even as an adult. My spelling is not great, so I have no problem with admitting that and letting you guys know that I check my spelling even. I'm an adult and I check my spelling. I'm also an adult who struggles with the times tables and has to count 3, 6, 9, 12 like that to do my times tables. So just being a grown-up doesn't necessarily mean that you can just do stuff that you're expected to do at school. Just as a heads up. Or not even at school, just in life. Okay. I didn't like that O, so I'm changing it. Okay, so did they have camouflage? Did they camouflage to their environment? Or maybe they camouflage together. I imagine, you know how, what a strange sentence starter. Did you know that zebras have stripes so that when they all gather together, lions or other predators, hyenas sometimes, find it hard to choose one because they all look like a jumble of stripes. Okay, so sometimes it's to do with their environment, but sometimes it's to do with hiding maybe in a herd. Not necessarily in their environment. I've missed out. And then look, environment. See? Environment. Better. What else do we need to think about? Oh, their diet. That's better. Their diet. What do they eat? If your animal is a vegetarian or a herbivore, they probably have flat teeth. Now we are omnivores, so we've got some sharp ones at the front, but if you have a look at cow's teeth, for example, I can show you a picture now I know that this works. Cow's teeth. Okay. Can I find a picture of cow's teeth that isn't weird? Okay, here we go. Teeth are just strange, aren't they? But they're all flat, look. They're all flat because they chew grass. Chew. It's all about grinding and crushing, okay? If you are a carnivore or an omnivore, you might have some spikier teeth, some sort of incisors or some canines, and they're for ripping and tearing. So if you're eating meat, you gotta... Okay, so herbivore. They eat veg. Carnivore. They eat meat. And the way I remember omnivores, turn that down a little bit so you can see. Omnivores eat everything and they make this noise. Om nom 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 nom. Okay. I'm not doing that again. Omnivore. And they eat both. Okay. I realise I say okay at the end of my sentence a lot. I'm trying not to do that. Okay. She says okay instantly. Diet. What do they eat will affect their size. It will also affect their teeth. Their size. We've got a bit of space up here. I can add something else to help you. What about their speed? Do they need to run away from things? Or their strength? Do they need to be strong? Do they need to climb trees, maybe? Do they need to, I don't know, be able to swim? Do they need to be able to dig? How are they surviving? You could even, if you wanted to, make a food chain for me. Verity, I don't know if you know what a food chain is. I'm going to do a very brief one. Okay, a food chain starts with the energy from the sun. There it is. Okay. Oh, we're going upwards. Beep, beep, beep. Maybe we'll go back a bit. There we go. Okay. Energy from the sun always goes to a plant next. I think always. I say always so confidently. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to draw a leaf. Ooh, ooh. Okay. Then the energy travels to the next animal. I'm going to draw. I think it's a saber-toothed bunny. Don't know why he's got saber tooth. Maybe he's eaten really some seriously difficult vines that he's having to rip. Or maybe he's protecting himself from... what could a saber-toothed bunny take down? Maybe like an angry guinea pig? Probably not anything bigger than that. And then the energy from that animal would go to a bigger animal. I'm going to do the cat just for the sake of there's not much room. Saber-toothed cat. Okay, that's a really simple food chain. So you could, if you said to me, "Oh, I made an animal that's lives in a group and it's covered in fur because it was living in the beginning part of the Stone Age when it was rather cold, and it's spotty so that it's camouflaged in its little gang, its herd, but it actually eats meat, so it's got massive spiky teeth. You could also put it in its food chain and tell me that it eats meat. So what meat does it eat? Maybe it eats crickets and prehistoric crickets. And who is its predator? Who is who is it the prey of? So who's going to eat it? And you could maybe put it into a food chain. That would be seriously cool. That would be like extra bonus points. So yeah, I think that's all the things you need to consider to build an animal. That doesn't have to be just the Stone Age. That could be any time. Invent your own animal, but I just thought it might be fun to do it in the Stone Age because they're all a bit strange in the Stone Age. I think that's just because they're not animals that we know, but we think they have like extra long necks or extra big teeth or extra fluff. So yeah, that's me for today. Thank you so much for joining me, Verity. Thanks for joining in with Danger or Dinner. But yes, we're only doing half an hour today, so I would love, 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 love to see your drawings of your Stone Age animals. And I will hopefully see you next week when we talk a bit about art, and I might even do some art, and then you could go away and recreate it as well if you like. Yeah, a couple of bits of art next week. Thank you so much, and if you like this and you feel like buying me a coffee on my Ko-fi, or signing up to subscribe to keep me going, that would be amazing. I will say that if I've only got 1 or 2 people watching, I'm not sure how long I'm going to keep going for because it takes so long to plan, and I'm doing it for free. I'm not getting paid at all. So if you could spread the word and maybe share me on social media or ask Mom to share me on any home ed groups or anything like that, that would be really, really, really appreciated because I'm going to have to find a different job if nobody joins.